APIs are really the backbone of any AI systems, right? Whether it could be your Gen AI or it could be any LLM systems, which typically will involve API. Or in order for your system or your product to consume those, definitely you need to use their APIs. So I strongly believe APIs are part or core part of all those systems. Whenever we are trying to interact with some Gen AI models. Developers always think about how they can fine tune the response, or whenever they're trying to, give the data, is it properly handled? They don't really care what goes out. So
Right.
it could be a user giving out all the sensitive information where the API takes and process everything,
Mhm.
wherein they just measure the quality of output. But when it comes to what information is going in, is really challenging, and it really need to be understand.
Welcome to season 4 of The Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host, AppSec enthusiast, and growth manager at Escape. Today, I'm joined by Gowtham Sundar, a senior lead engineer for AI security, AI and API included, as you can guess, at SPH Media. Ian is a seasoned AppSec leader with over a decade of experience across enterprise security, pen testing, and security product development. In this episode, Gowtham brings a real practitioner's point of view on what it actually takes to secure AI systems. We dive into why APIs are at the heart of AI, why securing them is non-negotiable, and why automated API discovery is becoming critical for governance as systems scale. We also talk about how AI security is evolving at lightning speed, sometimes changing week by week, and what that means for security teams trying to keep up. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It's the best way to avoid missing future episodes. And with that, get ready to hear Gotham opinions. Dive right in. Hey Gautam, I'm super excited to have you on the Elephant and Knapsack podcast with me as a guest. We've been chatting already for, I think we started actually September last year. Finally, we got to meet. So I'm very looking forward, especially because your background is kind of in the intersection of different domains. When we talked before, it was like API security, and now you're also like API, AI security, well, and AppSec, of course. So kind of free A in your job. So it's interesting to see, I think, with that intersection within the organization, because I even saw some API security companies are kind of transitioning now in MCP security. So do you think a lot of people kind of underestimate this link between AI and APIs that power them with data?
Yep. Okay. I think first of all, thanks, Alexandra, for this invite. I'm happy to be part of the podcast. I've been seeing the podcast for a while. I have been seeing few guests really sharing very good insights about their field of study, and very good information being shared over by different experts in the industry. First of all, thank you. To your question, I think yes, APIs are really the backbone of any AI systems, right? So whether it could be your Gen AI or it could be any LLM systems or all that, which typically will involve have a API built on top it, or like in order for your system or your product to consume those, definitely you need to use their APIs. So I strongly believe APIs are part or core part of all those systems, and is very essential to secure those, or think of securing those APIs and understanding those APIs, right? What exactly they do, what functionality they have, and how securely they can be integrated or implemented in the systems that we are trying to build.
And what was the main challenge that you've seen so far? Like, what is the common norm or mistake that people make?
I think one thing when it comes to AI systems, right? So the primary focus is on trying to make the system work as expected.
Mm.
Meaning that, like, whenever we are trying to interact with some Gen AI models, something like that, right? Developers always think about how they can fine tune the response, or whenever they're trying to, give the data, is it like properly handled? And they did. I mean that's what comes in, right? So they don't really care what goes out. So it could be a user, like, giving out all the sensitive information where the API takes and process everything,
Mhm.
wherein they just measure the output, the quality of output. But when it comes to what information is going in, is really challenging, and it really need to be understand whenever some developers are trying to integrate with LLM models. So yeah, that's one of the major challenge.
Do you think it's something that we should threat model before developers are even allowed to use AI in their organization? Because probably AI developers don't really always think about the fact that AI is actually ingesting the sensitive data through the API. They connect an API, but they don't think, okay, is my way how I ingest that data and how I send that data back is the most, secure, and can anyone breach that? And it can be, I think there were some breaches that were actually related to that. I think I read about one at NVIDIA that was like due to injection attacks. So, and then basically the vulnerability, allowed the cyber criminals to kind of to use the model to load an API and get all the data. So, like, what do you think? Like, who should be responsible at the organization scale to make sure that developers actually are educated enough?
Yeah, I think more than focusing on particular system, right? Let's as we are talking about AI, API is also coming into picture, but let's keep the AI system or apart, right? Consider any API or endpoint for that matter, right? It should be taken consideration. I mean, the security has been taken to consideration. Okay, what are the implication, or like how well the functionality? I understand developers should think from a point where, okay, what is the exact functionality of this API or endpoint and all that, right? Because often there is something called shared responsibility model, right? So often what happens is like it's just not the off the shelf you can directly take and directly start using it.
Mhm.
So developers, sometimes what happens is it lies in the responsibility of the developer or the customer, right? They often say that, okay, we have been providing this, but it lies with your responsibility to make sure that you have security considerations or security mechanisms in place to make sure that this is secure. Yes, you should not consider only how it is working as intended, not only from a feature perspective, but also should consider the security of implementing. I think the breach that we talk about is a Ray AI, so wherein it was basically it's not a it's kind of an implementation issue where the API was tried to be actually should be I mean given over permission or should be have enforced permissions to do that, which the developer has failed to do it, right? So which then caused them a huge breach, which led to a lot of information exposure and all that. So developers really need to understand how exactly the shared model or how exactly the functionality of the API or the endpoint is to be configured and all that. So these considerations should be taken while during development, while during the reviews at each stage, not just like okay, I take the API, I just write it as part of the code and then leave it there, right?
And do you think, like, in this case, should kind of monitor this? It should be somehow monitored, in an automated way, what is exactly connected to the model, what type of data connected to the model. I think your role is kind of unique because you're at the intersection AI and API together, but in some especially in large organizations, so these are separate roles. Who in this case, like, who should be responsible to monitor? Like, actually, I think the question is whether should someone monitor. You say with API discovery, you monitor all IPS organizations, but in this case, is it also, should it be like an Excel sheet, with, okay, where does this API, what model it gets connected on data is sent, or it should be, I don't know, AI security tool responsibility or API security tool responsibility? Like, how do you establish the right governance in place?
Yes, I think you rightly pointed out a good thing. So I feel like you really cannot protect what you know. So unless you know what is there, you really cannot protect it, right? And one of the most challenge with APIs are like you never know how many APIs are there in your systems, right? Often we try to do API security assessments. We work with developers. They say these are a list of the APIs, right? But when we try to discover more or identify more try to APIs, or like we often sometimes get some reports from external researchers saying that this API endpoint is misconfigured or something. And we go back to the developers and ask, like, have you are you aware of this API endpoint? because most of the times it's like answer is yes and no, because it might be the older API or I call the shadow APIs, which is like there for a long period of time, which nobody knew, right? With rise in shadow APIs, where APIs exist, but like it's not that since you're not using it as part of the application doesn't mean that those API doesn't cause any security impact. So it is really really important to understand what exactly are your APIs. So we try to do something called inventory management to really understand. And as you mentioned, like everything will start with initially maintaining an Excel sheet, right? So we try to see, yeah, it's only 10 APIs. Okay, just create an Excel sheet of 10 APIs. We know what are the different methods and all that. But over a point in time, as the product goes, as you try to evolve, you can't really rely on those manual methods because you never know which API has become a shadow API or which API is a zombie API or like which API is really not in use and all that. So definitely you need some type of continuous monitoring system or a governance system to really see what they are doing in the background. Okay, so maintaining Excel sheet will not tell you an API call has been made at night or like some I mean, somebody is like malicious attackers trying to call the API or trying to do some attack on it. Definitely, you need some type of system to really monitor APIs and give governance so that you can act immediately rather than something bad has happened and trying to see what things are going on and all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really important. Yes,
Yeah, I think like automated API discovery, it's very important part because it's special, of course, if your organization has one or two APIs and that's
yeah,
fine. But at scale, it's incredibly important. I think, yeah, the hardest part is always to decide what is the information that you actually need to see to show you how critical the API is. I mean, apart from, of course, exposure, but like, yeah, let's say connected to AI, like what does it, how critical is
exactly,
that it's connected to that or that model. And I'm not, for example, yeah, that's at least interesting to see if let's say it's being used by one of your developers in their new project and it's connected with OpenAI API as well. Just for example,
exactly. Yeah, often
and
like they don't really. Uh, it's not a fault of them as well because they are just trying out multiple things, so it's really hard for them to maintain everything as they develop more features and all that, right? So it's really challenge especially when it comes to API. It's the biggest challenge that I have seen based on my experience to really know what exactly is there. Do you have a full inventory of your APIs? I don't think it's like 100%. Yeah,
yeah, probably not. You need a lot of different integrations sometimes to make sure you're really monitoring everything. At least that's what we've seen. I've seen with our customers.
exactly.
Judging by experience, you need to connect your repos, you need to connect your cloud, and then everything comes together and you have a full picture. But for example, sometimes it can be hard in someone that develops a workflow and automation tool. I think we had like in a webinar, like I'm using like NI10, and sometimes I do have to connect API and AI models together. So
Yes, yes.
at our scale, there's no one that's really like
Mm,
apart from us monitoring that. But I think at larger scale, it's a good question to ask, like who is monitoring
mm,
those types of integrations and connections together, and where, if it's necessary, of course, and if there's a tool for that. So that could be yeah, an interesting project to see. At least I don't know. I think have you seen that in the practice, like a monitoring and say APIs and AIs connected together through those automation tools, and maybe they're not directly by developers?
I haven't come across anything like that. So, I mean, there are few tools I've seen to really help with understanding or knowing the APIs, but trying to monitor or like stitch the pieces together, I haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more on a startup level where you have to get
Yeah,
scrappy and find ways to kind of with the
correct.
maybe less development, this on low code and less development background. And also, I think last year we chatted quite a bit, about AI security, and it has changed so much within just a year. How have you seen it evolve?
I think it has evolved rapidly, grown a lot, because last time we spoke, never anticipated, like, it will rapidly change. At that time, there were, it just all started with ChatGPT and all that, but now we have talking about vibe coding, MCP servers, and all that, right? So the change is very rapid. It's growing at a pace where we could never imagine. So I think down the lane, if we do a next year, if we have a conversation, I think there'll be a lot more systems. So the pace at which the AI systems are growing is very, very important. At the same time, it is also important to understand the security and awareness. So a lot of things have come in terms of security, especially we have OAS top 10 for LLMs, and there are a lot of frameworks that have also been developed, and a lot of organization are putting effort to adopt those security controls and frameworks. A lot of governance is coming up. Uh, Security is trying to catch up at the pace where the AI systems are being developed and all that, but it's a very challenging race. Really, organizations really need to catch up with the race to make sure that what that they have, especially with the data that they have, to make sure the data is secure, because data is what core of the heart of the AI and all that. So it's very really important to make sure that they secure it, they don't expose any information outside, and then rather have a big mess to happen.
Mm. And do you think there's something missing from OWASP Top 10 for LLMs?
I think it's very early stage, so there are quite a lot of things missing. But it's good start. I would say it's definitely a good start for practitioner, especially for cybersecurity practitioner, to really don't know where exactly to start with, or like just like looking around, poking around things to. I'm not sure where exactly should I do, what should I do, and all that. So I believe it's a good start, and there is a long way to go. Obviously, yeah, when it is a community project, there'll be a lot of opinions and a lot of feedbacks. So, but yeah, it's a good start, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of feedback, and there will be also new, more general OWASP Top 10 that will come out this November so far. So it's going to be also interesting to see what has changed, because, I mean, it's community project, so people vote as well on what they want to see. So it's like very would be also interesting to see how everything like intersects, all the new things
Yeah,
that are being
yes,
published.
that will be quite interesting, like to really see how things intersect and how what type of over. Definitely, there will be a lot of intersection. I am sure there will be a lot of intersection, but it's very hard to have a single top 10 or everything for that, because each system is different from each other. But it's really to understand how they are connected together. So, for example, if you look at web, you definitely also see what can be chained, or like how it relates to API top 10. If you look at API top 10, how this relates to AI top 10. So this interlock is definitely important. I feel that understanding this interlock is essential to see how you can secure the system as a whole rather than looking at individual components.
And we talked quite a lot, I think, recently about business logic testing. I do think we don't pay enough attention on that still yet, at least in organizations, because there are still SQL injections, that need to be fixed, or CSS. But yeah, business logic is it
Yeah.
something that's usually like difficult for you to control from a security perspective?
Because business logic issues are always prevalent, right? Because depending on a business, there are multiple functionalities has been built, a lot of features have been built, and the challenge with some of the automated solutions or something like that, they can I would not say they cannot, but up to some extent they can understand the context and do it. But in order to understand the full context, if you need for business logic, you need to understand the context, how exactly when somebody comes in, do the payment to your platform, how does this goes to, what are the system interconnected, or what are the multiple things, multiple system it can talk to, and all that. So that's where like really people need to really put in a lot of mind and think out of the box, and to see, hey, how can I break this flow, and try to extract something out of it, or how can I break this logic, what exactly is going through, how a developer might have, think from a developer perspective also, how might developer might have handled this exception case and all that. So it's a continuous feedback and evolving thing. So It's not like as straightforward like in a SQL injection where you can have a list of payloads and just use any automated tools and attack. You either succeed or fail. But business logic involves a lot of understanding. You need to have a deep understanding of the system, what type of systems you interact with, what is the technology that's been built on, and all that.
It's that's probably the hardest part, and I think like several episodes back we were discussing with one of the guests like that it could be potentially a responsibility also of product managers, product teams to understand that part before the application is being built, since they are responsible of assigning tickets to developers whenever like the feature is being built and kind of orchestrating everything. So it's also could be like up to them to understand where the vulnerabilities would lie right from the start. And I think like with more and more, AI integrations that be built in, like even different AI models speaking kind of to each other, or AI agents connected to each other. Do you think like how much responsibility should it be of a PM thinking, okay, how we need to build, I don't know, a new agentic system in the application, and how what could be different risks that are associated that, or still it's entirely responsibility of a security engineer to think through that.
Yeah, I think and now we always there is we have discussed so much about shift left and all that, right? So we need to follow the same approach where you try to integrate security at very early stage, as early as possible. So I think I recently came across one framework which is developed by Singapore government, where they listed out good guideline on different people to be involved at different stages, where you will have a developer, you have a project manager, you also have a security professional or security architect at each stage during development, wherein you will involve a cyber security professional, you will involves a data scientist or whoever is like building them, and at the next phase, who are the people you should involve. So at every stage, you need a set of a committee or group of people to really understand what they are trying to build upon, right? What is the problem that they are trying to solve, or what is the solution that they want to build it to the customers and provide to the customers. So depending on a use case, you should understand, take feedback from each one of them, and see whatever they are trying to build is secure, it's reliable, and it meets their requirements, right? So rather than you miss out security people during the design or requirement and then involve them during testing, and the security guy will not have a context of what previously these people might have discussed, or what ideas have they have gone through. So when during testing they come up with a mindset just to test for the worst of 10 LLMs, maybe prompt injection or so when there is no type of not vulnerable to those things, he may you know give it a good to go, but there might be some business logic issues which never knew, or like there could be an API which is not secure, or they
Yeah.
might because he might not be even aware that there is an API call. He might think that the response is based on the training data, or like it's directly within the LLM, not an external LLM or something like that. So it is really important to involve all and right stakeholders at right phase of SDLC to get feedback at each stage and try to incorporate them and implement it. Yes, it will not be 100% foolproof, but yes, you can definitely reduce the attack surface. You can definitely reduce impact and all that.
Yeah, I think it sometimes can be also super hard to make sure everyone is involved.
Yeah, it's a super, yeah, it's difficult, but you need to really give the heads up before, way before. And yeah, sometimes the agile methodology, it's not that you can have buy-ins from everyone, but try the best to incorporate the right stakeholders at the right point in time, rather than, because what I see is like, as we spend more time in implementing things at a pace of AI and all that, and there are high chances that we could miss very very basic security requirements or basic security things. So really need to invest time and make sure the product is secure.
And do you think it should come at certain maybe level of maturity of organization? Because sometimes, like depending if it's very young organization, they just want to move fast, and or maybe a bit disorganized. It's a bit harder to do because especially like you from your background, you moved from India to Singapore, where I imagine culturally wise, it's also different. So maturity wise, also can be very different. Do you think like we need certain level of maturity to implement actual framework and process in place?
Mm, Actually, not, because it depends on the type of organization. For example, if you take startups, right? Startups like build fast. They work in more agile model. But when it comes to banks, especially in Singapore, which is more regulated, Singapore is a country where they give more importance to cyber security industry. They really take utmost care about the security of everything that they have and all that, and it's more of a digitalized nation, right? So security is very important. There are a lot of initiatives taken at countrywide, right? So it's very important that the faster they develop, the faster they should adopt to new security things as well. So imagine when you're a startup, you work on agile, you try to focus more on building and shipping out features. So do you still need to think about security at the last? No, things are, I mean, gone are the days like you cannot keep security at the end. So we already talked so much about shift security left
Yeah.
that everybody has talked about shift security list over the past decade. And if you are still not doing it, I think it's really not a good sign, right? And it's just those for shipping out features, right? Have a hard stop and then see whatever we have done is like okay, secure, and then proceed, or like whatever you are trying to build, have security integrated as part of your entire life cycle. Otherwise, things will be like getting worse and worse. As we see a lot of AI systems coming up and all things, attackers are leveraging AI to do attack the AI systems as well, right? So they now started using AIs to create exploits, AIs to start testing for web application vulnerabilities and all that. So on the other side, they are also coming up fast. So you need to really tighten all your areas.
Yeah, I think if you ask ChatGPT nicely, it can also help you to exploit. So
Yeah,
as well.
it can easily give you an exploit. All this is you need to tweak a bit, or I don't know I mean, like it might work just like that as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I tried on my side, so I know that it doesn't work from the first try because it kind of is supposed not to help you with exploration, but it's just more about the way of turning prompting that you can actually find the ways of, at least on a basic level, help you with certain things. So and the models that people build in house, they definitely more advanced and trained also on the more quality data. Essentially, that's targeted for a specific type of exploitation. So it also helps to decipher that and the specific type of organization as well. And I mean, shift left, yeah, it's a lot of guests told me it's overrated security password. But
yeah,
there's
I think it's a overrated buzzword. I mean, we have been talking through the years of all that. I also seen whenever I talk to my peers and people from industry, they always talk about either DevSecOps or Shift Security left. I think most of the organization has also adopted it, but it's a high time that we take it to the next level to make sure that we really follow it and then do it in the right way.
yeah. And apart from shift left, what do you think is the most overrated AppSec buzzword now?
Buzzword is like they say zero trust,
Yeah,
and
it's quite common.
so every time you hear like all these buzzwords, zero trust, shift security left, DevSecOps, and all that. So, but when you go deeper, right, it's all about uh, basic hygiene,
Hmm.
trying to do what is needed, what is required.
You just start with the basics that are already not all implemented
Yeah.
as well. And yeah, I always ask, this question on the podcast. If there would be one book that you could recommend to the audience, what would it be?
Think I recommend this is not a technical thing, but more of a management all that. So I strongly recommend book called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a very good book. So which talk about five key factors on how to have and manage a very good team. So I really strongly recommend that book for anyone who's managing the team or part of the team. Yeah, it's a very good read.
And what is the among those five? What is the one that you see the most?
The first thing is the absence of trust, right? So for anybody, you need to have a trust. It could be your manager, or the manager have a trust on your staff. So absence of trust is the first key point that they talk about, and there are other functions as well. So you need to have trust. You need to trust your people. You need to trust your peers. You need to trust your leaders. So without trust, there is nothing. As long as we have trust, we can have the work done. It really makes a lot of changes.
Yeah, and well, it's something also that's being earned sometimes as well, and
Yeah.
easily broken too, and that's
Broken as well. Yeah. Broken and it should be
especially
earned.
security.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very easy to break that, and then it's very hard to earn that back again. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Yeah, I'll definitely put all the links in the description of the episode, and it was great, yeah, to learn about your challenges about the intersection of AI and API. So thank you so much.
Thanks again for the opportunity. Speak to you soon. Yeah. Thank you.